I don't think I've seen anyone talk about this, so I just wanted to nerd out for a second. But I personally believe Naruto has probably the best, arguably the best, like multiple season opening run of any manga slash anime. What I mean by that is I think Naruto has the best, like, not just the first season, but the first two, three seasons or arcs of that series consistently is fire in a way that most anime they don't get there. Like most modern comparison, obviously, is solo leveling. Solo leveling is probably the best comparison so far in terms of like back to back to back fire arcs. But the main difference with solo leveling and Naruto is that the solo leveling arcs are pretty freaking short to the point where like we're already at the end of season 2. They're saying season 3 is not going to come out for another basically 3 years at this point, which is crazy. And even then, season 3 might be the last. Like season 3 might be a season 4, and that's it. You know, that's how short the solo leveling arcs are. Obviously, the Naruto arcs are not that short, and we are talking about OG Naruto. We're not talking about Shippuden. Shippuden, I don't hate it, but I don't have the same feeling for it as OG Naruto. But OG Naruto, from Land of Waves, which, from my understanding, because I looked this up some time ago, the Land of Waves arc is from the very beginning until the Land of Waves actually ends, once Kakashi and Team 7 comes back from the Land of Waves. But some people think that the initial introduction is its own arc in general. But if I remember correctly, like literally the very beginning until the end of like Zabuza and that whole thing is Land of Waves, which then jumps straight into tuning exams, which then leads to Konoha Crush. And then after that, I think is when things kind of slow down a bit. Not only in like the pacing of the show, because pretty much that whole time has been pretty fast and combat heavy. I think that's when filler starts to really rear its ugly head and it kind of pumps the brakes. But also, just the quality of the show, at least from an anime perspective, started to go down just a bit. But I don't think it was too much. I don't remember if it was right after that where they either did the filler where they went into the land of rice paddies with Jiraiya and Sakura, or they went on the like Tsunade retrieval arc or something like that, which wasn't bad, but to me that was a more noticeable dip. But those first three arcs, even if you want to mitigate it to the big three, even if you solely want to focus on the big three, I'm probably gonna catch some flack for this. Amongst the big three, I still say Naruto has the best opening run of consistent arcs back to back that is nothing but flame. Bleach, to this day, you want me to go back to Bleach? I'm skipping the very first arc, like the Shinigami, not retrieval arc, but I forget what it's called. Just his day-to-day activities as a Shinigami, as a Soul Reaper. I don't really care for going back to that arc. Now, once we get to, I guess, the later half of that arc, I don't know if it's still part of the same arc, but basically when Renji and Byakuya show up and they basically wreck Ichigo and he starts training with, not Unohana, Kisuke Urahara. When he starts training with him, that's where it picks up. But then once they get into the actual Soul Society for the Soul Society invasion arc, that's where it just takes off. But then right after that arc, I think right after that is the bounce, and that's where it gets a little wishy-washy. Really overstayed its welcome. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I can start Bleach all over. I'm going to skip the first arc or the majority of it before, in my opinion, things start to pick up and I want to pay attention. One Piece, depending on who's watching it, because the reason it took me so long to get into One Piece was because in the very beginning, it's like I didn't know what the heck was going on. It was like it was kind of interesting, but what in the world's going? Like, I think that's where, the cat pirates and the guy with the super long nails, the blades on his fingertips that acted kind of like cat nails and that whole thing. When I first tried watching One Piece, I think that's where I fell off because I was like, what in the heck is going on here? Like, this is weird. And I fell off for a long period of time. Then at some point, I want to say my junior or first senior year of college is where I got back into it. And I made it a point to watch it consistently for months before I caught up. And then I got hooked, especially with Nami and Arlong Park, that arc. That's where I really made it a point to like, okay, they got me now. But anything prior to that was a little Mm. Naruto is gas for the first three consecutive arcs, back to back to back, and it don't let up. It don't let up. It only just gets more and more crazy. So you start with the Land of Waves arc, which again, if I remember correctly, includes basically his introduction. It includes the whole fight between him and Iruka kind of teaming up to take down Mitsuki, who was fodder basically. Naruto becomes a shinobi. He becomes a genin kind of under special circumstance. And then from there, he gets assigned to Team 7, meets Sakura and Sasuke, as well as Kakashi, who are all going to stick with them throughout the rest of the series, including Shippuden. And he does the whole test of, if you can take the two bells, then I'll allow you to actually be Team 7 and we'll go on missions from there. But if y'all fail, I'll send y'all back to the academy, which eventually escalates to, okay, fine. I won't just send you back to the academy. I will drop you from, I guess, the shinobi program or whatever altogether, to the point where you guys are not going to become ninja at all if you fail this test. Ultimately, they end up passing that test, and one of their first jobs, mainly because Naruto's complaining, leads them to landing a C rank mission, which is above their pay grade. But the Hokage said, okay, this Brad wants something a little more serious. Let's give him some a little more serious. Only to find out that that C rank mission, because the client lied, is actually an A rank mission. And that is what adds a bit of pressure and kind of like drama to the whole thing. Because you already had a couple, I believe, Rain Village Chunin twin brothers that tried to take him out. Kakashi and Sasuke take him down. Naruto gets scared. But then we get across Zabuza, who was the first main, not just like villain, but like the first big deal fight. Even though we don't know much about him, but the way that they talked about him and the Blood Mist Village, I said Hidden Rain, the Hidden Mist Village, their Chunin exam and what he did, like we just keep learning more and more things about this guy. That's just like, this guy's insane. And then you see how he actually fights. He's like, he is insane. This guy's nuts, but he's a problem. Like, no, if I was Naruto, yeah, I would have been terrified too. I would have left. I wouldn't have stabbed myself or grabbed my head. No, I would have got the heck out of there. But they pulled it off. They end up going, they think that Zabuza is dead, only to find out that the tracking ninja that killed him, that unalived him, actually was on his side. And so there ends up being a round 2 of the conflict between Team 7, Kakashi, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, and Zabuza and Haku, the little boy that saved him, who looked a whole lot like a girl, which is crazy. Great. And it's funny because like Naruto doesn't forget that. Like, I think it's like the Blood Prison movie or something like that. It's kind of a running joke that he never forgot that situation with Haku, where he got a little too excited just to find out who he was looking at was actually a grown man, or at least a young man, and not a pretty girl. So he was like, yeah, I'm not falling for this twice. And he asked old girl, she's a tranny, and she smacks the taste out of him. It's freaking hilarious. But yeah, that happens. They're on what ends up becoming the Great Naruto Bridge. Ultimately, Team 7 comes out on top. Zabuza kind of has a change of heart to a degree and lets his more sentimental side show, at least in relation to Haku. Because now Haku, he was acting like Haku was just a tool that didn't have any real personal meaning to him. But of course, with Naruto's Talk no Jutsu, that ended up kind of being wrong. And he was like, okay, I'm going to bring down the veil. I'll show that I actually care about the guy. And I'm going to basically turn traitor on my employer and try to take him out in Haku's honor. And that's basically what happens. Plus, Zabuza ends up, meeting his maker as well. So this all leads to Team 7 going back to the Hidden Leaf Village where they're from. And they instantly jump right into the Chunin exams arc. Like, they get back. I think they're only there for a short amount of time. The, what's it called? The Jonin are starting to elect, whether or not they think their teams are ready for the Chunin exams. Everyone's like, hey, the first years, Kurenai's team, Kakashi's team, and Asuma's team, yeah, they shouldn't even be recommended. Like, that's standard. All of them were like, no, we think our guys are ready, and we're going to submit them for the Chunin exams. Now, of course, Iruka, being kind of like a school teacher, like a grade school teacher, essentially, but for kids trying to go into the military, he's like, no, it's too soon. These guys are not prodigies like y'all. They need extra time to get more experience before they go into the Chunin exams, because if they go too soon, They're not gonna make it out alive. And Kakashi tries to put Iruka in his place and say, they're not your students no more. They're mine. So my word is the only one that matters here, and you need to back off. Ultimately, this leads to Iruka, in his own way, testing not only Team 7, or at least it's kind of implied that he not only tests Team 7, but he tests all of the first year shinobi that are rookies. And he decides, like, yeah, all of the Jonin were right. Because Iruka, small detail, he's a Chunin, which is a step above a Genin that is a total rookie. A Chunin is, I think, a platoon leader, essentially. But Jonin, there are very, relatively speaking, few Jonin in all the major villages, which are basically countries in their own right. Well, not the villages themselves, but every major hidden village resides in a larger land that is basically its own country. And relatively speaking, every country has a handful of Jonin to the number of Genin and Chunin that they have. So this dude is kind of barking up the wrong tree in terms of rank, but it doesn't seem like shinobi really work like that on a day-to-day basis. When they're in battle, yeah, I'm a Jonin Chunin, that may come more into play, but on a regular every day-to-day basis, it doesn't seem like there's that whole thing of you're Chunin Jonin, you need to back off, I'm higher up than you. It seems to be more of a ability / skill type of thing, as well as just general respect for people's positions. And in this case, Kakashi is closer to the kids that he's recommending, so Iruka's word does not mean much. But he took it upon himself to double check. He liked what he found, and he was like, okay, cool, I'll back off. The Chunin exam begins, and this is where they start off with a paper test. Well, even before the actual test, there was another test before it, because there's 3 people to a team, to a squad. And of course, Naruto and Sasuke, they were gung-ho for the Chunin exams. It was Sakura, the only girl who also happens to basically be the weakest link of the trio. Never really gets out of that, but she does improve very much in her own right later. Because of her not being as, at least, combat gifted as the other two, it's kind of believed and understood that she's going to be the burden and she's going to be the reason that they won't make it. But she doesn't know that, because they all think, well, okay, Kakashi nominated us, everyone nominated us, we'll accept. Sasuke and I will just go in. But all 3 people have to be on the same page because their whole thing revolves around teamwork. So luckily, Sakura does end up agreeing to go into the Chunin exams along with Naruto and Sasuke. And, they kind of passed the first test right away. Then the actual test, which is a written test, which is terrible for Naruto, he ends up not answering a single question, just to pass the thing anyway. Then we get, that's kind of whatever. It's interesting, but it's kind of whatever. Then you get into the Forest of Death. The Forest of Death is when some stuff goes down. That's where we start getting more introduced into Orochimaru, him targeting Sasuke and why, sending the Sound Ninja after him, and attacking the whole Squad 7. And then when Sakura was the only one left standing, when Naruto and Sasuke were left to fend for themselves, they like blacked out. So she's trying to cover them. The Sound Ninja come after her and attack her. She's way out of their league. That's not going to work in her favor. They're going to body her. Only for other Leaf Genin to show up, directly and indirectly come to her protection. Because Rock Lee made it a point to protect her. But then there was Neji, who I don't think he never would have gave a care. But he was kind of like on some, similar to the Uchiha, he was kind of on some pride type. You're messing with my friends, you're messing with my team, whatever. I can't have that. So now I got to make an example out of you. But then he backed off because Sasuke, with the curse mark that Orochimaru gave him, oh, he went to town. That when he breaks the guy's arm, the guy that has the wind tunnel in the palm of his hand, oh my goodness, that will never, ever leave me. That's one of the scenes where people think that anime is just for kids. It's like, if you had seen Naruto on Toonami growing up, and if you saw that part, which there were some other parts before, but to me, that moment, at least as I remember it, is the first moment that is dark, gritty. They really should have, because in the manga, I think it's even worse. He doesn't rip his arms off, but he breaks the heck out of them. But that same Sound Ninja, because he survives, when they get to the preliminary fights, one-on-one fights, when the Forest of Death part is done, that's where it should have been gory. But the anime censored it. he tries to use one of the attacks. Again, he has like wind tunnels in the palm of his hands that allows him to blow focus funnels of air and sound at people as an attack. So he tries to use that attack. That's his main thing. But the guy that he's fighting, Shino, a bug specialist, he clogs the holes in his hands that are used for his attack. So he tries to use his attack. He ends up blowing his own arms off. Completely off. In the manga, he blows them completely off. In the anime, they keep it censored. But in the manga, he essentially blows his arms completely off. What ends up being the Konoha Crush, but they reach the final phase of the Chunin exams, which are one-on-one fights, but this time, like, the whole village and other spectators from different villages can come and take a look. Because all candidates of the Chunin exam, they come from different villages and like focus on one village. So they choose whatever village for the year. It might be the Hidden Leaf one year, Hidden Sand, Hidden Cloud, and all the other villages go there for the Chunin exams. But this year it's in the Hidden Leaf. So the Hidden Leaf Ninja are on their home turf. So they're going about their battles. Whoever wins, some lose, whatever. All for a Konoha Crush to finally kick into effect. And that's where, as a anime watcher, that's where it's like, what is going on? Because so much was happening. Then, because you already were kind of delayed because of Naruto's whole thing with Jiraiya and Ebisu no longer being his teacher, even though Kakashi assigned him to be. Jiraiya ends up showing up. We find out Jiraiya is actually a pretty important guy. And then even later than that, find out Jiraiya is basically Naruto's godfather, even though it's never directly stated. I think he essentially figures it out, or one way or another, it's kind of just known, like he kind of just comes to that conclusion. Of course, we don't know that at the time, but either way, we're delayed when it comes to that whole thing. They finished their preliminary rounds. They have their candidates for the final one-on-one fights. We're delayed because of Naruto's training between Ebisu and Jiraiya. Then we see him make his way to the stadium or the arena late for his fight. And he's the very first fight at that. So that's what makes it very bad. Then we finally get to Sasuke's fight, which has been put off for so long. There were like 3 or 4 fights before Sasuke's fight because they delayed it. And he barely showed up. The fight starts. And as it's picking up and he does serious damage to Gaara, who, with the exception of Rock Lee, has been basically untouchable at this point. And we're like, okay, it's getting up there. He's going to take this guy out. Chunin exam ends on the dot. Hidden Sand starts attacking the village. A 3-headed snake comes out of nowhere. What is going on? That's something that was very good about the Chunin exam / Konoha Crush arc. It never let you get your footing. It never really did. Like the whole thing, it stays moving. But especially when Konoha Crush hit, that's where it really just came to a head. Completely catches you off guard. And then it leads to kind of a round 2 between Sasuke and Gaara with some other fights going on. Of course, Kakashi and Guy are battling like Sound Ninja, Jonin that made their way in, but they're basically fodder to them. Shikamaru, Sakura, Naruto, and one of Kakashi's ninja hounds ends up making like an impromptu team to go after Sasuke, who is chasing down Gaara, because apparently Gaara is like the main key for the mission to destroy the Hidden Leaf, which goes into Jinchuriki territory and a bunch of other stuff that I may or may not talk about later. This isn't exactly like an anime review channel. I just like to use this as an opportunity to nerd out. So maybe I'll talk about that later. But they're tracking them down. Essentially, a round 2 between Sasuke and Gaara kicks up, ultimately, skipping a bunch of stuff. That ends up happening. Sasuke essentially loses, but it's not really his fault. It's because of the curse mark that he was given by Orochimaru that's having like an adverse effect on him. So he can't necessarily perform to the best of his ability. Naruto eventually catches up when it looks like Gaara, in a transformed Jinchuriki state, is going to take out Sasuke, but he intervenes and saves Sasuke and Sakura's life, which leads to a one-on-one fight between Naruto and Gaara. Now, that was such an interesting fight because we've obviously seen the fight between Rock Lee and Gaara, where Rock Lee almost won. He was this close to winning. And then you have Sasuke that essentially had a repeat of it before things got derailed and the other villages started to attack the Hidden Leaf village. So now we see Naruto fighting him, and it's like, what is he gonna do? What could he possibly do? Like, yeah, speed is his thing, and speed has been more or less identified as a main, I guess, weakness that you can take advantage of when it comes to Gara. If you can move fast enough, you can make your way through his, so to say, impenetrable defense or perfect defense. So it's like Naruto's fast, definitely faster than your average person, has more stamina and chakra than your average ninja, but I don't think he's at the level that these other two are at to actually do some damage. Boy, was I wrong. Every time I watch it, I have that thought, even though I know what's going to happen. But he uses his shadow clones to work his way around. He takes advantage of a major weak spot in Gaara's transformation. He ends up using a kunai with an explosive tag to blow his tail off, basically, where the defense of his transformation is weakest. So he shows his battle IQ, his creativity, of course, the limits of his chakra reserves, even though he's exhausted from his fight with Neji, which he won. He kind of started wearing down, like he started slowing down. He was getting tired. His stamina was running out. And Sasuke intervened and told him basically, take Sakura and leave. I'll handle the rest of this fight. At this point, it becomes like a philosophy-based battle because Naruto and Gaara are basically mirrors of each other, and they are very alike, more than they realize, and I think more than they still have yet to realize, even maybe once Shippuden comes around. But at this point, they do know enough to know that their backgrounds are very similar, and therefore they kind of have a connection through that. They just took two different paths, or at the very least were given two different paths, even though they kind of had the same, trials and tribulations and levels of isolation, even though Gaara, I would say, is objectively worse for sure. Naruto ignores Sasuke's command or whatever to say, go ahead and get on and I'll take care of this. And he just unleashes all of his chakra to the point where it's visible. Like, it looks like he's kind of doing like a Dragon Ball Z, like key energy rise type of thing. Because chakra is supposed to be invisible. You're not supposed to be able to see it. So he's releasing so much chakra that Sasuke can see and feel it visibly. Next thing you know, it's like 2,000 clones of Naruto. Probably the most amount of clones he ever made. Because when the very first episode where he beat up Mitsuki with shadow clones, I think he only made like a couple hundred or something like that. This one, he made a couple thousand. And then started leaning into Gaara, jumping him. It's the funniest thing because it's like, you want to get jumped by 2,000 basically guys? Almost all of them are clones of one guy. You're getting jumped by over 2,000 guys. Yo, that is crazy. And he already did the 2,000 kicks. He punched you 2,000 times. Before Gaara went to full-blown transformation and basically became a kaiju, Naruto's like, now I'm going to pack you out with 4,000 kicks. Are you kidding? No. It's also a bit of a question mark, but super interesting, super intriguing, or at least it was at the time, is the fact that between Naruto and Gamabunta, when he summons Gamabunta using the summoning jutsu, they have to work in tandem to do a transformation, and they end up producing Kurama, which has always been interesting to me because it's like, how does he know what Kurama looks like? Because I think up to that point, he learned how to extract chakra from Kurama kind of willingly to some capacity, right? And that's how he managed to win his fight with Neji when that was a complete one-sided butt whooping for the longest time. Even during his time when Jiraiya almost killed him and he learned to extract the Nine Tails chakra willingly, I still don't think he ever got a full look at Kurama. Or at the very least, the way they show it is like, you see his face, you see him covered in the cloud of his red chakra, but you don't see all of him. So it always made me wonder, how did he know to transform into Kurama? How does he know about the Nine-Tailed Fox? Because at that point, he's not really privy to it, not to the capacity that he becomes later on, of course. Those are the type of things that makes me wonder. And I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if that was, just maybe bad writing or something at the time. Maybe it hinted at something for later on. I don't know. But it's the one unanswered question that always kind of makes me raise my eyebrow. Like, how did he know to do that? But after that, of course, ultimately, Naruto wins the fight. Gaara and the Sand Village go back home. Gaara ends up having essentially a change of heart. the Sand and the Leaf end up becoming allies, which the Sand didn't necessarily have a choice. One, because they found out that they were connived and that Orochimaru actually took down their Kage, the Kage, and basically their country's military leader. But they didn't know that because he was impersonating him. So one, they found out that they got by Orochimaru, and two, they were so weakened from the battle, they had no choice but to stay on the Hidden Leaf's good side. Otherwise, the Hidden Leaf really could stomp them out. Really, the Hidden Leaf had all reason in the world to stomp them out regardless, even to sneak them out like after the fact. But they didn't do that. They maintained like a collaborative relationship basically for the rest of the series. Even in Boruto now, it's still there, except it's all the villages now. So that's where it kind of peaked, or at the very least, that's like the end of the first three major arcs where it was peak consistently to this day, like decade plus later, and it's still not old. After that, again, I don't remember if it's immediately after this where, well, no, the Land of Rice Paddies thing happens after the Sasuke retrieval arc, so that's much later in the future. So after that, they're focused on trying to get a new Hokage, and I think the next major arc is like the Tsunade retrieval arc or whatever that is, and that's where it kind of dips a bit for me. Not terrible, but just not great. I know Itachi and Kisame, they pop up maybe right after that. Like, I think it goes from the end of Konoha Crush to, of course, Naruto and Jiraiya training together often. So Naruto's traveling with Jiraiya often. I think after that is where Itachi and Kisame come to the picture. Kakashi gets beat up, which was hype. Like that three-way fight between Asuma, Kurenai, and Kakashi. They end up essentially losing the fight. Kakashi goes into a coma. Itachi's trying to track down Naruto. He ultimately ends up putting Sasuke, who is Itachi's younger brother, keep in mind. Itachi is Sasuke's older brother, but Sasuke wants to destroy him for reasons. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to say that. But Itachi ends up putting Sasuke in a coma as well. So now there are two people in a coma, and that's where Jiraiya is like, hey, if you guys want a fifth Hokage, but also someone that can help these guys, I know who to find, and that's where they go find Tsunade. That's what happens. So the dip in quality isn't immediate. It's still pretty hype, especially when Itachi and Kisame show up. And for a minute, Sasuke was basically right in front of Itachi, but he didn't know it. Itachi heard him. He heard his voice, but obviously he didn't show his presence right away. And we find out Kakashi knew that Itachi and Kisame were in the village and was kind of just playing with him. And in a version, kind of taunted Itachi by bringing Sasuke right there, knowing that Itachi was right there. It's so crazy. Like, Kakashi is so shady. You wouldn't think so the way his personality is, but he's so shady. But yeah, it's after that, once it officially gets into Tsunade retrieval, that's where it gets a little not as good. You know what I'm saying? I could do without it to a degree. Man, the rest of them, the first three major arcs of Naruto, I say I will stand on this. I think I will die on this hill. Naruto has the best opening three or however many arc opening run of an anime series / manga series. Even if you want to condense it into the big three, I still say Naruto has the best opening run before it has like a noticeable dip in quality or interest in the story. Bleach, my opinion, is not there. That's dead last. Second place, now that I'm actually a fan of it, I'll say is One Piece, but Naruto is the best. That's my opinion. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Any suggestions for other videos or stuff like that. Just hearing me ramble. If you made it to the end of this video, I appreciate you. I'll see you guys in the next one.